Hello, Quilt Artisans. My name is Shonda, and welcome to my channel Under the Needle. So I'm hoping you all had a happy Mother's Day. Mine didn't quite go as planned. I normally like to be home mostly for Mother's Day, but we our family hasn't been able to get together a lot because we've had like a lot going on. So we didn't have our second Saturday last month. So we wanted to make sure we had it this month, even though it was tied to Mother's Day. So we got together on Saturday, and I spent the night there with my mom. And in the morning, one of my grandmother's sisters was there. My grandmother came over, and so we cooked breakfast for them. And then after breakfast, like I was not feeling well. I had some kind of stomach bug that pretty much had me occupied all day. It was not a good time. But finally got some medicine, took some medicine for it, and felt a little better, at least well enough to travel. Because my mom lives about an hour away, and I could not travel for an hour. I wasn't going to make it. So my fiance went out, got me some medicine, and then once I took that, then I could at least, make the trip. We ended up stopping at my cousin's house to drop off a plate of food for my aunt who wasn't able to make it, and then we came home. So we got home late. But my girls had got me some nice little Mother's Day stuff. One of my oldest daughters, she picked me up this because she knows I'm a mug whore. I love me a good mug. And my middle daughter got me a card and some flowers. And like I said, my oldest daughter got me the tumbler and fake flowers, which I actually really appreciated. I should have brought it. It's cute. It's like a Lego flower. It reminds me of Legos. It reminds me of little Legos, but it's a flower. And it's like decorative. And it matches the house. So I don't know if she did that on purpose or not, but that'll be able to be a mainstay because it matches. Things are a little dark. My lighting is off. I have two overhead, because I'm in a garage. It's a converted garage. And I have two overhead lights, one directly over me and one on the other side. Now, these lights, I paid somebody to come out here and fix them, but for some reason, they don't always like to stay lit. And sometimes if you turn them off, they don't like to turn back on. So I leave them on 24/7. But invariably, whenever I go away for the weekend, one of my children flicks the switch and turns my lights off. And sometimes I can get them to come back on, and sometimes I can't. So I was able to get this one back on. This one came on, but the light over there will not come on. So things are a little dark until I can figure out my lighting situation. But the purpose of this video today is to show, I want to share a finish. I actually finished a quilt. And I finished it on time. Because I finished this puppy on Saturday before I went to my family function. So, or did I finish it Friday? I don't know. But I finished it on time. So, this was the quilt. It's called Charade. I just liked how it looked. It's so difficult to find the block that it just looks like you pieced all these tiny pieces together. It just looks like you pieced all these tiny pieces together. And so I chose to do the throw size, which is 60 by 72. And so for that, I needed 1.5 jelly rolls. And that was it. And then my binding and my backing. So I chose this. It's called, I've already forgotten. It was by Clothworks for Cedar West, but I don't remember the name. Misty Garden, Misty Floral. I don't remember. Anyway, I had two jelly rolls. I had two full jelly rolls, but they were each different. So one had more bright colors in it, and one had more jewel tone colors in it. So you can see how we've got these deep purples, but then we also have these light yellows and pinks. So one bundle was a bit more darker and and the other bundle was a bit brighter. So I just kind of chose my favorite 60 strips out of the two of them, and went with that. So I want to show you guys the quilt. Now, so really there's one core block, okay? But you can choose to put it together a little differently to give yourself some variety. Now, initially I was going to do like 3 or 4 different blocks, and then I just decided for sanity purposes and to keep this as an easy project that I would just do 2 blocks. So I did 60 of one block and 60 of another block. And then I rotated them and alternated. I rotated and alternated them throughout the quilt. So one row, I would take one block, one of my 2 different blocks, and I would just, so the first block in the row would be, I would have the block, let's just for argument's sake, do I got a block around you? Yeah, of course. So if it's like this in the first position, then the second block I would rotate like this, and then the third one would be rotated like this, the fourth would be rotated like this, and I just kept rotating that throughout the row. And then the second row, I would do the same thing, but with the second block, the alternate block. And so because of that, it just, you can't see the block, and so I love it. And it's super colorful, and I had a backing that I just loved, a 108 that I had purchased that I didn't know what I was going to use for. Perfect for this project. I did something a little funky with the binding. So let me show you guys the finished quilt. You're going to love this because I love this. I still got to get pictures of it and get it posted. So here's my quilt. See if I can get back further. If I didn't have so much stuff over here, I could. So this is trying to get the full thing in the frame there. So that's the full quilt. And then my back is this. And it's really just kind of like a large scale watercolor floral is what it is. So let's let you see it a little closer. And this back is by PB Textiles, and I think it's called Off the Rack. I can't remember. If y'all really want to know, let me know, and I will put it in the description. But I bought this from Hancock's of Paducah, I think back in 2021, so I don't know if it's still available or not. Okay, so you can kind of see better now. It's kind of like it's not really an abstract floral. It's a little bit, but it's kind of like a semi-abstract watercolor floral, and it just had like all the colors of the rainbow in here. So it even had like places where it looked like it had, almost black in it or almost gray in it. And I do have some black and gray in this quilt. Now I could have not used the black and gray. I could have chosen to use one of the other colors, but I wanted to go ahead and throw it in. And here's the quilt front. Now the quilt designer, she did recommend organic wavy lines for the quilting because it kind of was a nice contrast to the geometric of the pattern. Now, if you watch my channel, then you know that one of my favorite ways to quilt a quilt is by using the serpentine stitch, which is basically wavy lines. But to make it look more organic, but still make my life easy, What I did was I still used my, instead of trying to freehand these wavy lines, I still used my serpentine stitch. It's just that I chose to change the stitch length, the stitch width. I chose to change the stitch width randomly for each pass throughout the quilt. Okay, so what I first did was I did a few lines, right? I think like along the edges and maybe every other, maybe like one here, one here. I can see them now. One here. I just did some random lines just to keep the quilt together and keep it from shifting while I was doing the quilting. So I might have to fix that on the binding right there. I didn't get that zigzag quite where it needed to be. So yeah, that was how I chose to do the quilting. And you can see it, well, to me, I think it's easier to see the quilting on the front in this case. Usually it's easier to see on the back, but in this case it's not. I chose to zigzag the binding, which I never do. I think I've only done that one other time in my quilting life. And normally when I attach my binding, I attach it to the front and then fold it to the back. And then I stitch in the ditch on the front to let it catch in the back. That's normally how I do my binding. But this one, I did it the opposite. I sewed it to the back, flipped it over, and then I zigzagged it down in the front because I just had this awesome rainbow thread. So I used this rainbow thread by Isacord to do all my quilting. So, and what I like about this is that the color changes like every couple of inches, every inch and a half. You can see we're blue, then we're yellow, then we're blue, then we're red. Actually, this is green. This is a different color than this, but you can't really tell that. And so I like how the color kind of changes and that kind of goes with the quilt. I don't know what this spot is. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I liked how the binding came out. I chose to do a 2-inch binding also, which I don't normally do. I normally do a 2 1/4 inch. I used some leftover strips from the jelly roll and I cut them down to 2 inches. I probably would have made my life easier if I had done it at 2 1/4. It would have been a little easier to stitch this binding down. I had some areas here where I kind of struggled and I didn't quite get it down where it needed to be. I didn't get it folded over enough. And I knew that I was going to struggle, but I really wanted just a narrow binding for some reason because I struggled for the binding on this quilt. I thought about cutting up some of the backing and using that. I thought about just getting just a black Kona and using that to kind of frame it. But in the end, I decided to keep it colorful, keep it fun, and go with the some of the leftover 2 1/2 inch strips and put this fun kind of zigzag stitch to secure the binding. My binding is by no means perfect. You can see it is not perfectly straight. It is wavy. It is wobbly. It is all over the place. I don't care. I don't care. My quilts are to be loved and used, and perfection doesn't really play in for me. So, yeah. So that's my quilt. I'm loving it. I'm really happy about it. So now it's like this because I started working on this and it was such an easy project. Like the blocks went together so fast. The blocks went together so quickly. And the only time, like one of the reasons why I chose to put it together the way I did was to minimize the amount of matching seams when I put the rows together and when I put the blocks together. Because I wanted to make sure that my seams nested, but I did not want to have to do a lot of excessive seam flipping. I did do some, but I tried to keep it to a minimum, and so the pressing of the seams and nesting of the seams was actually part of my design, my design choice. It made some things easier. I laid it out in a way to make it so that I would have less things to match. So, yeah, so like this pattern, I highly recommend it. I love how this quilt came out. I love that I finally found a use for this backing. It does feel really good to use up old stash. These jelly rolls I bought pre-pandemic. Like, I probably bought these. I bought the jelly rolls from Shabby Fabrics. I remember. I remember because I very rarely buy from them because the stuff usually isn't cheap enough for me. But I think they were like on sale for like $15, $16, maybe $20 at the most. And so I bought the two of them, and they had basically sat in my jelly roll stash since 2018, maybe 2019 at the latest. At the latest, 2019. So it felt good to use up something that I had had for so long. And it also felt good to use up a 108 that I loved, that I had no idea how I was going to use, because I don't use these colors in my quilting. I don't really do a lot of rainbow in my quilting, so I didn't know how I was going to do this or what it was going to fit with, but it went really well with this. I'm over the moon with how it came out. I'm over the moon with how the quilting came out. I didn't have any weird issues on my backing like I get sometimes. My backing will bunch up on me sometimes. But it also, maybe because I was just doing straight lines and I wasn't doing anything vertical or parallel. So I don't know if that was a part of it. I don't know. But it just reminds me of like a jewel crayon box, or like a box of jewels. Just kind of twinkling. It's just really bright and colorful. And it's really lightweight. I just used an 80-20. I think I used a Pellon 80-20. So it's really, really light. It's really light. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Trying to think if there was anything else. I don't think so. I think that was it. Just going to show you guys one last time. This is the Charade quilt by Mitzi over at Jittery Wings. I will put the link in the description for the pattern. And yeah, that's it for me. And I'll see you guys next video.